this has been. It's been
Oh my gosh.
like a millennium.
It is, it is. The
Okay.
journey is a
Yeah.
trip for sure.
Okay, let's see here. What's happening? Let me just, I think we're on, so be careful. Anything you say can and will be used against you from this point forward. Let's see here. Let me just turn this down. Boom, boom, boom. Let me see. Is it on? Yes, we're live. There's Facebook, uh, YouTube.
Wow,
Okay, and X. Okay, we're good on all three platforms.
awesome.
Okay, it might take a little bit for people to come in. We've been getting squashed on the algorithms as we've been out of, we weren't doing our normal routine for so long, but we're getting back into it now, and the algorithms seem to be in our favor now, so they're starting to come back. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Soul Speak, Soulology, whatever you want to call it. We've got a new friend in the house, Orsi from Vancouver. I'm looking forward to this next hour, hour and a half, however long we decide to spend here. And let me just say that we are getting this platform going again. I don't think we're going to be doing 65 shows a month like we did for so many years, but you can expect to see probably, I would say, probably somewhere between 35 and 40 a month, and maybe more, maybe more. That's just this show. We're going to be doing some other things. We have a show this afternoon at 4 o'clock, which is, I think, in about 4 hours. And it's going to be an interesting show with Ty Hudnall and one of the chiefs of the Toltec Nation. And we're going to be talking about the Toltecs and some things. So I'm looking forward to that. But right now, we got Orshi in the house. And let me just formally welcome you and thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming in and sharing sacred space with all of us. And my intention here is to open up 360 degrees in total transparency and to kind of engage this beautiful sister and see what we can come up with in real time, courageously, intuitively, imaginatively, um, and all that. So thank you for coming in, Orshi. It's a pleasure to meet you. Welcome to Soul Speaks.
Thank you so much for having me, and this is super exciting. I can't wait to see what's going to come of this conversation. And just before we came live, I had pulled from one of my favorite oracles, and I just said, please give me a message for this show. And I got that the priority is to be open. So the openness is a really big thing.
Oh, yes.
Um,
Yes.
so the 360 is I'm down. Let's do it.
Okay. Well, then we're already in the Vesica Pisces mode coming together to oneness. Um,
Very cool.
yeah, openness, that's a really good word. I mean, that's a word that really we can't get away from. A lot of these adjectives and characteristics of our past and present that are fading or gone are things that we're not taking with us. But openness seems to be something that is multidimensional, that would serve us in any capacity. Um, so, yeah, I think that's a great card to have pulled. Now, I'm looking at you and I'm looking at your space, and I
Mm.
see some certifications, and I see yoga, and I see some other energetics that are playing out there. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself,
Mm.
where you come from, how you got here, and whatever else is on your mind?
Are you ready?
Yes.
Yeah, so thank you so much for noticing the background. I enjoy surrounding myself with things that mean something. This actual poster behind me is a very, very old one that I got from a friend almost 30 years ago and only have had it on my wall for the past few years, which led me to Ayurveda and Ayurvedic medicine and a deep ancient science of human technology. But where did I start? I'm from Central Europe. I I was born into a communist country at the time of Hungary, And so the reason why I am emphasizing that, because it was quite a restrictive environment, and I felt that right away as a child. And I remember when I was like 9 years old that I always felt that I'm not going to live there for all my life. I always had that knowing inside. And sure enough, the universe shuffled things my way that got me actually to Canada, even though that was not like a direct, target for me. It just happened when I was in university, and just I had this opportunity and I came out, and then I went back home and I came back out, and I ended up finding myself here where I met my husband 30 years ago. And I ended up falling into immigration law, which was my first career. And interestingly speaking, the only thing that I've always been interested in, really, truly, were cultures and peoples and community. And so, you know how it was just coming out of the left field that I ended up in this, you know, line of profession. And then 22 years of career that I have served in that realm. And toward the end, I started to get sick. So a journey started. I had to find myself. And eventually a point came when I died on a piece of walnut. I had an anaphylactic attack, and I completely flatlined. This happened in Toronto at the time. And that started a journey, definitely toward a new direction. And I ended up, searching for my own healing because nobody could help me in the regular allopathic medicine system. And then eventually I came across my ultimate healer, which was water. And I ended up moving to Vancouver. And then parallel to that, I started to dabble into structured ionized water. And that led me and opened me, actually, like cracked me open, water did. And I found energy healing. And then Reiki came into my life. And I just used to go, to my Reiki master, and I found an enormous healing in that space. And I remember like session 5, and my heart chakra just completely broke open. And she was like, oh my God, I started to cry, and just everything came up. And I had no idea what those things were, but they were just coming up. And then eventually I found myself in the space of the courses. So I have completed all of level 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And eventually the COVID times just rolled around, and people started calling me, and they said, oh my God, we're so stressed out. Can you help? Can you do this? Can you do a session? So in 2020, I dropped into the space, and I have done over 250 Reiki healing sessions absolutely at no cost. And that was the most healing um, journey I've ever been on. It was just the best thing ever that happened to me. And I have gained a different perspective of my own skills and capabilities, which I feel I have always had, but I just never, could meet my clair skills and my, clairvoyance and my psychic abilities. So I ended up stepping into that space, and somehow Ayurveda found me. I'm not even sure if I know how that came into my life. And then I found myself in an academic environment to learn Ayurveda, but only to find that this ancient knowledge is quite the ancient version of quantum physics, really. And I ended up finding myself in quantum healing. And I started to merge all these together, the water energetics, and energy healing, and like liquid ether, and into this healing space. Here I am today, with you.
Wow.
After years of being in energy healing and frequency healing and biospiritual engineering. So that's really where my the beef of my work is today.
Wow. That's
Mm.
that's so it's so refreshing in these accelerating times that we're having. This year has been we were talking before the show. I said it's been like a millennia. It's been like 1,000 years in what is now 6 months and a few days.
Mm.
Um, and I love the story because there's so much expansion going on now, obviously with the inner soul growth of the individuals,
Mm.
which is really a story that's evolving of self-sourcing, or
Mm.
obviously self-awareness. And your story is such a good example of how there's an organic evolution
Mm.
to the development of the individual, and as goes the individual, so goes the collective, right? And in contrast, because there is an expansion of that, there's also an expansion of the distortion of the movie script of the global scenarios. And I love the fact that you really seem to be transfixed in a very organic, relaxed way in your own personal development. And I think your story really speaks to it a lot. There's some things in your story I'd like to talk about because just for my own edification
Oh,
and maybe others. But let me just kind of get a recap here. So, 22 years, and congratulations on the 30 years of your relationship. Uh, 22 years you're serving in, let's just say, the legal industry, legal construct, immigration. And like you said, you're really tied into culture and people. And sounds like you were serving in your greatest capacity. And then you get hit, as so many of us have, in different ways with trauma,
yeah.
sickness, in this case, physical maladies, and that type of thing. And in that process, you come across structured water, which I have a friend that's pretty involved in that. I haven't really spoke to it in a few years, so I'd like to visit that a little bit. And
Okay.
then the second piece, the second primary piece, it sounds like you got like 5 or 6 pieces, but the other one that kind of jumps out to me is this Ayurveda, because again, I've got friends that have talked about it, and I can already tell from your explanation that it's a lot more than what I thought it was. I thought it just had to do with what you eat. Okay.
Oh my gosh, it
So,
is so
so
much more.
yeah,
Mm.
and then a couple of those other things too. I'd like to know because I mean, many of the people that have come on this show, 4,000 shows, have been healers, energy workers, that type of thing. And there's many different modalities and faces on the surface, stories on the surface of how they do things and what they see and what they do. So I'd like to go into that a little bit, but let's start with the structured water, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Uh, it sounds like you said that's the first place that you went. You discovered the healing properties of water. You mentioned ether a minute ago. I don't know if that was associated, but can you talk to us a little bit about maybe what structured water is, what it's done for you, and what you've learned from it?
Ooh, okay. So I'll take a deep breath now. Okay, so what happened to me is that when I started to have all these anaphylactic attacks, which I've never been allergic to any food before. So that was the whole thing. I had other allergies, the hay fever, the constant runny nose, and that kind of thing. And I've had it for many years. And it got so bad that I barely could breathe through my nose. And there's significance to that because when for 1 decade you're not able to breathe through your nose, that will have major health implications. And so I was losing torque. In the meantime, I had a very busy legal practice. I had hundreds of files, regulations, law, deadlines. I used to go and execute nationwide warrants with all the authorities and, watched families through their transformational journeys. And I'm a nurturer. I'm a super nurturer. So I put such an amount of energy for my people, for my clients, that I completely forgot about myself. So that is the true story in the beginning of it all. But then, these near death experiences have made me realize that there is something wrong, that I need to pay attention. The doctors didn't know what to do with me. Indeed, literally, my family physician said to me in Toronto that we've got good news. And I said, what would be the good news? And she said, everything is okay with you. I said, well, how could that be? Like, I've got walnuts, I die. I've got blueberries in another year and a half, which I had another anaphylactic attack where I nearly pulled the television set right on myself as I was fainting. And then I started to get panic attacks. And I said, you're telling me I'm right. Like, no, I'm not right. Something is really wrong. And so I went on to the naturopathic, route. And I have healed some, learned some, but I also have left $13,000 at that naturopathic clinic in 2 years of time, $13,000, because I wanted to heal. And it didn't get to the root cause, and I knew it. So a friend of mine invited me to BC, and she said, okay, enough. You need to come out here and you need to relax for 1 week in the mountains. So that's what happened. And that's where I met the water technology. And I didn't really ask any questions. I just drank the water. And you know what? We are on the World Wide Web, where I am sharing something quite vulnerable when I tell you that on my 1 week trip here in the mountains of British Columbia, day 6 came, and I had this washroom story, which I'm not going to share. But from that moment onward, I could breathe. And I was like, oh my God, what's happening? I've had this water all week. All of a sudden, I'm able to put prana through my field. So that really got my attention. And then some research later, like 9 months, I kind of took to research about this technology. I ended up purchasing it because continually my health was going downhill after my trip when I went back to Toronto. So I decided that we're going to move to BC, that I'm going to wrap up my legal practice. And then I dove right into water and water energetics. And what I found, that structured ionized water, okay, it's a mouthy, wording, but what it does is it's got active hydrogen in it. It's got electrical charge to the water. It's got smaller clusters, because water molecules travel together just as much as soul are traveling together. And, they quite resemble each other. So the way how water clusters are working, normal tap water, I would say, processed tap water, would have maybe about 15, 20 molecules working together, while in structured water, 5 to 6 little water molecules are working together. So they become smaller, they become smoother, they've got full of minerals that are naturally in the water, so it's not filtered out. So whatever is in the water source, all your magnesium, calcium, potassium, sodium, and iron are all in the water that you receive, and then it gets ionized, it gets broken into 2 different streams of water, and the one you would drink have these minerals in it, so it makes it sweet, smooth, and the restructuring puts the shape of the water molecules to be hexagonally shaped. And the cells, our cells are also hexagonally shaped. So imagine that there's no square peg with a round hole. There's no struggle for the body to hydrate. It's able to absorb fully, like cellular hydration is what I'm talking about. Yeah. And also imagine this, that our cells, and I don't know why, but God made it so, inside is positively charged, positively charged inside. So if you were to take structured ionized water, which is a negatively charged liquid substance, it basically sucks. It has a suction effect. So the cells have ease to absorb hydration. And hydration means to upload hydrogen into the system. And hydrogen is a universal solvent. So when I said ether, I said liquid ether. Imagine that the universe is mostly comprised of hydrogen. And guess what? So are we. The body, the physical body, molecularly 99% water. And so if we're mostly hydrogen, and so is the universe, right? Then imagine how easily we can interchange information, download, offload. So when we sleep at night, we offload to the field, I believe. That's based on my current level of consciousness and understanding. We offload information every night, all of us. And then this information data package, we are able to draw from when we're channeling, when we get downloads. But in order to activate this, you need to keep your frequency, your vibration, and your torque together very well. And you need to be able to move all of this energy between the body, between your mind, and between your soul. And Ayurveda has such a deep understanding of this that, believe it or not, and I will say it out loud today with you, that I truly believe that those ancient rishis 5,000 years ago, and this is really the oldest holistic system of medical science known to mankind, I believe they were multidimensional beings. I believe that they were another civilization bringing knowledge here.
Yes, that's a lot there.
Oh,
I
it's
want to go
so
back
much.
to
I
I want to
know.
go back to a couple things. No, because no, I would definitely want to pick up right where you left off because that's a really good point. I just want to get a little more clarification on the water. Uh, your friend asked you to come to the mountains and spend a week, and you discovered the water there. So I'm assuming that your friend was already using structured water. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, she had the technology. It's kind
Okay.
of like a unit on your kitchen counter.
Okay. Okay. I got you. Okay. So, and that would be the other thing I'd want to find out, just in general. We don't have to go into specifics because I'd like to get into this. What you just brought up is I think, a great subject. And this is too. We could spend a whole show, and maybe we'll do that at some point on structured water. But my question about the structured water is because I met a guy out of Sedona
Mhm.
that did it. I remember his name was Noble, I think, and a couple of other people. But my question is this: Do you? Okay, I lived in Hawaii for a while,
Uh-huh.
and you could go up to the mountain. And at the base of the mountain, there was fresh water, very cold, and swimming holes. And when you would go in, and obviously the temperature has an effect, like ice baths and that type of thing. So it really invigorates you. But it felt different. It felt like there was a charge. It felt like it was almost like electrical. It felt like all my cells were like dancing or screaming or something. So my question is there was that structured water, and also how do you create structured water, just in very general terms?
Mhm. Okay, so that's a lot as well on its own. But I'm just gonna say first that this kind of quality water, okay, that we're talking about, which is by the way called electrolyzed reduced water. Okay, so that's the scientific term, ERW. So if anybody wants to research, that's where they go. Okay. And it's got all these different capabilities, that one is that it picks up electrical charge, and electrical charge happens in the most pristine water sources. So they would be glacier waters, right? And the blue zones, which there's about 9 places on the planet left that have that quality of water. And they have noticed that in these zones, and they've noticed it like long ago, kind of like about 90 some years ago,
Can you
that
give us, can you give us, can you give us, sorry to interrupt you, but you said blue zones. Can you give us a couple of examples of where those might be?
sure, there's one is Okinawa, for example, Japan, um, Tlacote, Mexico. um all of a sudden I'm having where else, Sicily has, Sardinia, pardon me, Sardinia, for example, is a spot. um so Lourdes, France, is another spot. um the high of Himalayas, where the Hansas live, I think it's quite somewhere around Pakistan. Okay. And the Hansas, not to be mixed up with the Huns, but the Hansas, they live 120 and they know no disease. And so they have paid attention to this. And there was a Romanian guy actually who was a scientist of fluidity. So he was examining all these waters, and he found that all of the common denominators between these zones or places on the planet had to do with the water's quality, and that the quality of the water is measurable with like millivolts. It'll be a minus, 400, 500, 600, 800 millivolt charge. And, waterfalls, or if you go by the ocean, which I know you do, right? So as soon as you're walking on the shore, and the water waves just whoosh at you, and what do we say when we go on a vacation and we come home? We say we got charged. I'm so recharged. And so we know that in our languages, in almost every language. I've talked to so many people with different, obviously backgrounds, and they all have this word in their language. Oh, we're recharged after a vacation. But only little they kind of connect the dots that they were by a waterfall or by the sea, the salt, the sodium, all of that bring the electrical charge. And in the waterfalls, how the water gushes down and it grabs onto the minerals, and as it moves, and so it's got friction. So it's able to carry the minerals, the electrical charge, and it's all smaller in clusters, like I have said. So it's called
That's amazing.
microcluster.
That is amazing.
But what
Um,
happens when you
go ahead.
come down, just to give your Hawaiian, bit an answer, that unfortunately the electrical charge gets lost down about as the waters move down the mountains, and all of the places. They keep the alkalinity, so they have the minerals, because they don't lose the composition, but they lose the structure. And the other thing that happens with water is that it carries information. So it carries informational pollution. So imagine that if there's waters around which there's war, okay, you know, like then the water will carry that information, and that information is in our water systems. And actually, when I watched Elaine Marie Rose on your show, I ended up connecting with her. And so we had a Zoom privately already, and without any agenda, just to say, what is it with the water? Because I work and help with people's internal water system, while she helps with the external water system. And so we need to reprogram, the water content in the body. We're able to program it, but also it's going to impact us. So if we have polluted water going through the system, it's going to bring that information into your 99% molecular. Imagine that. Every cell, like every organ, is so much water in its content that I feel that it is more important to talk about water than any other substance first.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, water is it. That's it, right? That's the amniotic fluid, the way I look at it. And I can tell
Correct.
you, like I've been here, guess what, on three different bays. Okay. And the first bay, I didn't go in the water. I wasn't there very long. And I didn't walk out there too much. But when I did, even though it was very hot at that time last year, I did, I could tell, right? But the second stop, I would go out there 4 times a week for anywhere from half an hour to 4 or 5 hours. And I did get in the water, and and sometimes I didn't. And now I'm on a smaller bay, and I don't go in the water here yet, but there is something, and I never would have been able to explain it until I listened to you, but there is something that changes in me. It doesn't matter what's happening. I can go into town. I'm walking back. The sun's setting. It's 5:30, and I think to myself, I should go out to the beach. It's only 2 blocks away. Once I put my groceries up, and there was a couple of days I didn't do it, and and then there was a few days that I did, and I noticed that if I could just get over there and get out of the hustle and bustle, and I need to do this, or I'm too tired, or whatever, uh, it really altered my existence. And I actually have done probably about, I don't know, in a year, I've probably done about 6 or 7 live videos, which I've done a lot of live videos over the last 10 years. But these, I don't say anything. I just turn the camera towards the water and I sit there, and you would be amazed at the number of people that join, either live or on the replay, because you can tell, when there's substance in, an energetic expression or a share.
True. Yes, it
But
comes through because
yeah,
I feel the same way. How many times I've seen the ocean or whatever, but every time I saw your post, I would
oh,
immediately click on it because that there's that energetic transfer and everybody feels, that oneness. And you refer to the Piscean energy. Well, that is the oceanic
yeah,
energy, the oneness energy,
yeah, yeah,
and that's what connects all of us. And that is called the fourth phase of water. In my studies and in my viewing very, very smart people out there who are water stewards of this planet, I understand that this fourth phase is plasma-like, and it's in that plasma blubber that I feel we are all in, and we're all connected through our water energetics full of hydrogen, through the universal energetics of full of hydrogen. So that's the fluidity between the, the human being, as an electrical being to the field. And I feel that we're connected through our chakra points, just like as if you would be like connected with all these energetic cords up to the main plasma quantum field. And so I truly feel that working together, And in astrology, we understand that we're right now on the world axis of Pisces Virgo. And so that means that we need to go the Piscean way and kind of leave the Virgo way a bit behind. So that would mean that instead of computing, like Virgo is a precision, thinker. They want to know exactly how something works, where they're very good with their electronics and they're fine-tuning little things and instruments and fine-tuning thinking,
Logic, right?
logic. Instead of that, why don't we just feel through this?
That makes total sense.
Feel through, and this is on a world axis, so this is regardless of your astrological panel, which is, by the way, a very serious blueprint that we have. But I want to talk to you about another blueprint prior to this, which connects to all of this, that what we've
Let's
talked
talk
about.
about let's talk about that, the blueprint. But I want to stop you right there because I want to just kind of reaffirm something. Again, I love doing these shows because you sit with someone, and I've heard people tell me this. I'm sure they've told you this. They'll be like, "Oh, you just sort of post, you just said something," and I've not been able to say it. You know what I mean? It's like on the tip of your tongue, and you can't. So I'm getting it, and what I'm remembering is two things. I just want to drop this because I think it's some code, but one is I had I lucid dream a lot. And I did a post this morning, and in this lucid dream, I've never seen this before. Um, I was in a ship, let's just say, and I was coming back to to this physical body in the awake state, and I knew it, which was interesting. But the interesting thing was that in the ship, I could see the water above and I could see the water below. So it was almost as if, and I'm not saying this is it, but, and there's a reason I'm saying this, the water above would be like where space is. The water below would be like where Earth is. And I was in this ship, and in between, in the atmosphere that the ship was traveling in, was plasma. And I knew it was plasma. Now, the reason I'm bringing that up, the second part, is because as I've gone to, and this is going to your point about Virgo and Pisces, right? As I take these trips to the shore, to the beach, to the bay, and I consciously commune with the mother, because it's all the mother, right? I mean, I look at the mountains around it and I see the fathers, you know, but the water is the mother. And even like the mist and the wind, she carries it everywhere, the rain that falls. And what I realized was, and you just made me understand this, when I would go out there, because Pisces, water, it's emotion, right? It's emotion. And I believe that our emotions are very unique in the universal neighborhood, let's just say, to the human being. We
Yes.
know that the emotions have been siphoned, we've consented, we have not been able to balance them, and that's feeding something, and we don't need to get into those dark narratives and all that. My point is, we're reaching a point now, which I think is what you're saying, where we're able to align with the water, with the mother, which is all of that feeling you're talking about, which in the physical is all of our emotions. And I can understand now what I was doing out there, because these last few months for all of us, I mean, there's been a lot of stuff coming in, and and as soon as you get one, you get another, and but to go out there and to just sit there, no music in my ears. I used to go out there with music and then I turned it off.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
would just sit there, and that's what was happening. It was almost as if the waves were inside of me, and the wind and the sounds and all that. And it would bring my emotions to a level that I really, in a very subtle, organic, natural way that I had never really experienced with any consistency. Let's just say that. So, uh, and I just wanted you to follow up on what you were talking about when you were finishing there, if you don't mind.
Yes. So imagine that, water, you know, in Ayurveda, let me just say this, all of the principles are based on the five element theory. Okay. So, the five elements, what are they? They're ether, let's start with her first. And then there's air, and there's fire, water, and earth. And these elements, by the way, all directly connect on the main chakra points, right? Ether, usually mostly the top. So your throat chakra, your third eye, and your crown are governed by ether. Okay. So the heart is governed by air. It's electrical energy. Obviously we know that the solar plexus is governed by fire. It's your transformer, it's your engine, it's your processing unit. That's why we don't all look like a hamburger or a chickpea salad, right? And then there's the water energy, which is in your sacral chakra. And why? Like, people always know sacral chakra as the sexuality component, but that's really the least bit about it. It's really sensuality, it's productivity, creativity, all go and lie in here, plus your water metabolism. So your kidney health, all are governed in the sacral chakra. And what else? Procreation, life. Like you said, the amniotic fluid. I mean, baby needs to be in fluid. It needs to be in mama energy, water energy, and then there's a grounding earth energy at the bottom, right? So it stabilizes you. So we're not kites without a string, right? So the water energetics is where our emotional data lie, So the mind space, this, auric field around us, where you would know if somebody stands into your auric field and you'd be like, no, get out of my space. Okay, because we don't know each other. We're not going to hug that easily, necessarily. You'll hug when you trust, you know what I mean? In this space is where we carry all our thoughts and all our emotional information. And it's not just in this life. That's the whole boot about it. It's all the previous lives, information, data, package lies in the mind and in the karmic body, which is the one other layer that really connects us to the universe. And imagine that when there's conception, so conception, I'm talking, mama and papa are having fun, and there is conception of the sperm and the egg. That moment, there is all your constitutional information that goes into that embryo. All your previous lives information carries in there. So this is how, the baby's nose looks like daddy's, but the baby has maybe the attitude of grandma or great grandma even, How does that psychological, emotional, mental information goes into that embryo? So that is what Ayurveda examines as your doshas. But what are the doshas? They are your default system. It's your default system that carries the information you've collected thus far in all your lives, into this space. So now you're going to carry this information. And if you get to know this information, you will understand yourself on a profoundly deeper way of how much water you are made up of, how much fire energy you have in the physical body. But maybe you've got a different percentage in your mind space. So somebody could be very intense, fire, analytical, even judgmental, but also very focused, so a lot of fiery people are leaders because they're able to process a lot and guide a lot with other people. But also the philosophers are a lot of air and ether energy, or artists, or, Van Gogh, very interesting, actually, example because of the ear, is he went a little crazy and deaf and Lots of ether energy is because the larger the ether, the more the creativity, the more possibilities and probabilities. So people with a lot of air and ether energy really need to work on grounding themselves all the time, more so even than other people. So there's all this energetic constitution, but also it carries karmic information. And that's what I found, and I have a hypothesis, which I've never really shared with the world yet, but I'm writing my white paper on it, where that when we die, how does that information, where is it going? How do we transfer that to the new life of your next life in the next vessel? How is that transfer happening? And I believe that it's happening with hydrogen, whereas when we die and the physical body goes, set down, there's no more prana energy going through there. All of this hydrogen content and water content we have, it starts evaporating, and the hydrogen is carrying that data, your information, your family, your karmic, your anything that you're bringing with you, all your experiences, emotions, traumas, and all of that. And it's carried and it awaits the new physical vessel based on your vibratory frequency value that's kind of somehow assigned to this new life again. And then we start all over, but the soul's journey continues. So it is up to you to figure it out, to reverse engineer yourself of how and why you're carrying certain information. What are the traumas? And the more hydration you have, the higher quality your hydration is, the more you're going to be able to compute, because the brain's fuel is hydrogen, by the way, the more you're going to be able to use your quantum computer, which is the brain, is going to start. That's where I am in my life. I'm coming to multidimensionality, of course, as well as I am past life regressing, and I'm very engaged with my next life as well. Of course, this comes with work. You need to be engaged in the process, and you really need to align authentically. And the water helps with all of that, all of it, your physical health, your authentic alignment, your level of consciousness to rise, your cellular communication, so that you've got a higher level of understanding. And when the water is damaged in a lot of us and in Mama Gaia, and all of that. And that is the divine feminine. While the fire line on the other side, on our right side running, is our masculine energetics. So I want to show you something. I'll turn my camera a little bit. Do you see this tapestry here? So
Yes.
this is the two serpents, right? This is from Peru, by the way.
Yes.
It's beautiful depiction. And it basically describes, as all ancient civilizations knew this, that there's the left side is the moon, it's the water energetics. It's also called Ida. It's our main energetic nadi running on the left side of the spine. And on the right side is our fire energetics, our masculine energetics. It's a main energetic fire line. And of course, we all have the feminine and the masculine in all of us. And that's how that divine feminine, divine masculine concept, that even twin flame concept, is really emerged in the last maybe 10 years. There's a lot of emerging information that, it has to do with us parachuting, I call it, to keep it in balance, the fire and water line. And because they are both, unfortunately, very distorted currently in the field, the water is coming up so that we deal with the energetic cleansing of it inside as well as on Mama Gaia in order to be better messengers between sky and earth, better, communication, better channeling. So that Piscean energy that I mentioned to you, all of us are going to be more psychic because we are anyway. It is just an activation of those energetics and balancing the two main nadis. And guess what happens when you balance the two main lines of water and fire? At the bottom of the root chakra lies we say the serpents lie there, the Kundalini energy. And the Kundalini means light, lini, in the kunda, which is container in Sanskrit. So it's light in the vessel. So when the fire and water lights are both harmoniously working with each other, then this light energy, which is ether, starts pushing upward like a rocket, like a space shuttle. It goes up. You need torque. You need a lot of torque for that to go up. So this is why a lot of us experience those, crazy stories we have, like my walnut story, and I'm sure everybody has their story. And then that ethereal energy goes up on a main nadi line is called the Shushumna. It carries ether, and ether goes up and it opens your ethereal playground. Now, the more you pump, so this is a pump, fire, water, you harmonize it, you pump the Kundalini, it goes up again. And then when you're up on that plateau, then you do it again. You rearrange yourself, you go fire, water, you rebalance your masculine and your feminine, your sun and your moon, your receptive energy with your action-oriented energy. And then again, you go again. And so you start traveling. Light and more light is coming through. And that is what's called the Merkaba light vessel. So it's a vessel, it's the vehicle. And that's how you keep traveling. And the more you do this work, the more you radiate, the more you've got light, the more you're able to move with the oneness, with the blubber, with this plasma-like, universe, if you will, the metaverse. And then you're able to compute different information like puzzle pieces, And I right now have been able to connect with maybe about 3 or 4 of my previous lives and one future life. And we'd be here till next Christmas if I were to tell you all of how my physical life, my career, space, if you will, connect to all of these journeys. So I'm truly organically made, 100% organic, stamped and sealed. As I go along, I am learning and I teach it to others so that they learn to do this also for themselves. Self-healing is what we need to do. So,
Yeah, that's a lot. There's a lot to unpack there. You're right. And I've not heard it in this comprehensive way where you have these different aspects or different traditions or what have you. And I have seen people do this, take different philosophies, different practices, and then kind of organically mold their own. But listening to you, we all know, or at least, well, we do, that there is a higher level of, let's just say higher level, a new level, a more unique level, more expansive level of communication. Or I would say, I call it code exchange or information data exchange.
yeah.
And so for years doing this show, I've been able to pick up these impressions, as we all do, But listening to you, I can really get a feel for the energy that you're carrying in my own conscious awareness. And what I mean by that is that what you're describing is one way, a way, your way, and a way that you share, which let's just be honest about this. People, we talk about downloads and transmissions and activations and information, but if it's not something that we can share, then what is it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to be able to consciously share that, I think is a very good thing. But what I'm
Permission.
saying is, it's like
Yeah.
you're we talked to energy a little bit earlier, and we've talked about that a lot on the show over the years. But uh, there is this alignment that we pursue from the heart and mind that I will call the soul, the I am soul. That is, you could say, meditation or dimensional experience or plant medicine or whatever you want to do. Uh, but there's also the embodiment, the physical embodiment, which takes on much bigger ramifications than just what do we eat, you know. And I feel like that's what you're doing. You're like connecting 5,000 years back from the Vedas. You're connecting all these other elements, and you're consciously aligning in a physical matter, which we know is more than just the physical, emotional, mental,
Yeah.
and like you talked about, the etheric
Yeah.
bodies that are attached.
Yeah.
And I can see like a boat, you know, when it's going through the water and it leaves that wake. I can see where everything is kind of falling in, and it's very interesting. It's very interesting to listen to you. I want to ask you, because as I'm listening to you, and remembering a lot of other conversations I've had, particularly with Franco Di Nicola, my brother, uh, he used to talk about there is a soul lineage and there's a human lineage. And listening to you talk about the egg and the sperm coming together and what that brings to the table and the characteristics and the attributes that um, come forth in an individual as a result of that in the physical experience. But as you're talking about, and people have, but as you're talking about connecting to your past lives and a future life and seeing the life, the singular life of it all, right?
Mhm.
As opposed to being I guess you would say stuck on the grid, you know, like
Yes,
so
exactly.
so self-consumed with this particular incarnation and this
Mhm.
collection of identities that we have accumulated just in this lifetime, whether we're aware or not, they're associated with something before and after us. But my point is that it sounds like you're not you're not resisting anything. You're actually taking every piece of what's been presented to you as you pursue this purpose,
Yeah.
and you're combining it and remixing it. And that's the way I've always seen it. Like, you know,
Thank you.
like Jesus and Magdalene and Kuan Yin and Germain or whatever,
Yeah.
they brought a template down.
That's right.
And we pick up that template,
Yeah.
and then we apply our own life experience, because the experience itself is the knowledge, right?
Your
I mean,
own perception of it.
right. So, and then you like, you know, I love music, and, you know, DJs like to remix
Yeah.
old music, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So you take a Muddy Waters blues song and you get a
Ah,
DJ
nice.
and he remixes it. And
Yeah.
so that's what I see that you're doing. I think that's what we're all doing. I really believe
But it-
that the conscious
Mhm.
efforts, which you're such a good example of, a great example, is the newest universal code being offered up that can
Yeah.
only be attained
Yeah.
by the actions that we take.
Yeah.
Okay. And the reason it's new is because we're combining what we came into this game with the experience of, like you said, with our perception of the experience.
Mhm.
And if we're, to me, it's like the barometer is my alignment or my creation, your creations that you're making are going to be in a higher and higher percentile. based on the purity of your intention,
Mm.
the reality of your unconditional love, because you're basically merging your will with universal will in some
That's
way.
right. It's a co-creation process. And because of this, I found I had a beautiful Akashic librarian that read for me years ago. And she really, really opened so many new gates and doors for me with that reading. That I realized that I'm an Arcturian. That's my original incarnation. And Arcturians are like this very high frequency biospiritual engineers, very architects. And so I found myself, like, imagine just my story and a little girl from Hungary and all my journey and coming through all these different career lines to this point. Like, I never would have thought in my whole life that this is where I'm going to end up being, but I've allowed the journey for sure. And the other thing I want to kind of loop back a little bit and show you is, a piece of coal, right? It's a carbon structure, right? And then you've got in your other hand a piece of diamond, which is also a carbon structure. Now, they're both having the same composition. Now, are you going to give me $1 million for my clump of coal? Will you? Because the thing is, they're
It
both
depends on my perception.
right. It's so the same composition, but different structure. That's the difference. And what makes the diamond is heat and pressure, those two things. And so imagine when all these things happen to us in our lives, some pressure, some tragedy, some trauma, all the things, all the things. And then it's pressure and heat coming at this biofield that we are, that actually brings on transformation. Actually, somebody wise said that suffering is not necessary, but pain is, in order for this process to start for some reason. And the point of the water and the different structured water versus processed waters, which are not electrically charged, tap water, bottled water, I don't care what the label says. I've measured them all of them, 100 trillion million, all of the bottled waters. They're all positive millivolts. And so when you put positive to positive, it's a repelling effect. So the cell is not able to absorb it well. And in order to get that water, the cell engine mitochondria needs to give energy to that crappy water, let's just say, in order to bring it into the cell, because otherwise there's no suction, there's no absorption, and therefore no utilization. So this new Earth's body is what I'm talking about, that how are we forming the new Earth's human with this higher level of consciousness, with more light, heart, brain coherence is all connecting to prana, and prana travels in water. So there's no life without the water, and there's no life without the hydrogen. And this one little tiny element, the first one in the periodic table, is the secret to life, and how all of this information is being jiggled around in the system.
I'm curious about
Um,
I'm curious about something about what you might feel or what your perception is. Oh, if you just take, for example, Dr. Emoto with
yeah.
his, okay.
Mhm.
And for those, I'm sure everyone knows, but we'll just say
Yeah.
basically this man conducted experiments for years and he spoke to water and
Mhm.
he analyzed the structure, the crystalline structure of the water, and he has pictures and it's really fascinating. I'm sure everybody knows about it by now. But in that regard, I'm curious with all the research that you've done
Mhm.
and the experiences that you have with what you're doing, uh, not to discount any practice in the physicality in terms of what we eat and what we drink and that type of thing, but to to ask the question, we are apparently, by all uh, accounts, moving into an awareness of something that was already there, which is a quantum thought reality. Can we restructure ourselves, which is 99% water, through the internal and or external verbalization, the talking to ourselves?
Yes, yes. But the water is the universal, the recorder. Okay, see, you see what I mean? So yes, the answer is absolute yes. And the reason why I'm so much of a water snob is because I feel that, and I see based on my research, my experience, my intelligence, my inference, you know, that water is the carrier of all of this. So let's say if your water metabolism is filthy, in other words, you've got a lot of toxicity, then you will have a harder time of this, you know, um, transformational journey. You'll have a harder time. That's why your density is your destiny. Your density, the higher your vibrational, higher frequency, higher vibration, and higher torque. So you've got more power. Then you've got electrical charge. You've got energy. See, you've got energy, and you can then move all of the information that whatever you eat, whatever you supplement, whatever you experience in life, everything is going to get amplified with this universal solvent or universal recorder, because it's also the solution to pollution is dilution.
You're a
See what I mean?
poetress
It,
too, right?
it is true,
But
isn't
I,
it?
you know,
So,
I just fascinates me because yeah, listening to and I love the breadth of your work. It's just such a comprehensive, multifaceted thing. And you're obviously very connected and also high intellect as well. But I remember, when I had my trauma, which you were talking about what happened with you 8 years ago, and I first reawoke back in 2011, and I was living on the streets, and so I obviously didn't have much money, and I used to eat at McDonald's uh, about 5 days a week because I could go in with $5. I could get two cheeseburgers, French fry, and a yogurt. Right now, I know, and you know, and we all know that that's just shit. But my soul was in command. You know how it is when you first wake up and you're really starting to get that very because it's so different than what you've been getting. And so I was very sensitive to it, and I would sit there and I would speak to it all. And I mean, it sounds crazy, but in those 2 years, I became more healthy. And now, obviously, I was walking a lot, I was exercising a lot. I guess I was fasting a lot because I wasn't eating a lot. But what I was eating more than half the time was
mm,
this shitty food, basically. But yeah, so I've always wondered about that. And now that you have gone so in depth to breaking it down to the compounds and to the water itself, the hydrogen, um, I just wonder because of our evolution these last 12, 13, 14 years, especially in the last this year and maybe even beginning last year, but certainly this year, I just wonder how much our capabilities and our impact from a conscious quantum thought creator, what kind of impact we're actually having that we may not even be aware of yet. You know what I mean? Because I know a lot of people, I know I've experienced it. I'm 63, and I've had chronic back problems since I was 30, and they have become, they're not non-existent now, but the level of flexibility and strength that's come on in the last few months, last year and a half, has got to be the result of alignment, whether it's individual, collective, or both? So I just wonder if you have any thoughts on the
Mhm.
progress that we're making. Are we giving ourselves enough credit? And do you feel that in a collective sense in the near future that the lights will turn on in our head and the old, not say old, the original operating system
Yeah,
will make itself known to a point where it won't even be like the 100 monkey effect. It'll be like the
yeah,
one billion monkey effect.
yeah.
What are
Well,
your
you're,
thoughts?
oh my gosh, you're talking to a 0 degree Sagittarius moon woman. So that means I'm an absolute chronic optimist. And I truly believe in humanity. But I also, what I believe in, based on my past life regression journeys, is that instead of working from the top down, you know, like big systems, let's take all these big things, I truly believe that the work needs to be done here. Always you are the solution. You are the solution, not the other things. And everybody always looks for the solutions outside, as I was too. I was too. I was one of the best immigration consultants in Toronto. And I got myself down to barely being able to get up in the mornings. And I was so freaking depressed and I was so depleted. And I did eat organic. I'm a home cook. I'm a mama Gaia thingy. I love to have homemade everything, like even the sauces. My fridge has almost nothing from the grocery store that's processed, and yet I still got sick, you know. And in reverse, when your comment,
I'm just curious with your research. Do you in your own case, do you feel like that sickness was something that you brought into this experience or something that was developed here?
okay, very good question. I brought it in. It's in my karmic imprint that I have had to work. If you were to see my astrological blueprint, which is our second blueprint, right? So the first one is the Constitution. Second, now you're born. You're born now. You've got your astrological panel, and I have a very strong servitude karma in my astrological chart. So in
Okay,
my first
I got you.
career, I was in counseling of men's law, if you will. Now I'm in counseling of nature's law. So I remained in counseling and I remained in law, if you will. But I have been able to compute why the things are happening to me. And instead of feeling sorry for myself and victimize myself and self sabotage myself, I actually understood what I need to do with that information. But see, what happens is that if you don't have enough torque or strength or energy, often people get stuck in the mud and they don't know how to gear toward what they really would like their lives to be. And so this is when the physical, um, solutions could be extremely helpful. And one would be cellular hydration. Then it would be good food, of course, because you know that when you take a strawberry off its vine, then it loses its electrical charge in 48 hours. So imagine that if you get the California beautiful strawberry, excuse me, and it comes up to Vancouver, where I live, it's got nothing in it. It's got no more
Exactly.
electrical
That's
charge.
exactly. I juice every morning,
You see
and
what I mean? Where you
yes.
are. Where are you, Todd? Where are you
Well,
located?
I'm in Mexico. I'm in a small town in Mexico, and
Beautiful.
I'm able to get. I don't have to buy anything that's
Mhm.
GMO, and that I don't get everything I want because they don't have it all. They don't have always have it locally. But you're absolutely right, and I've actually gotten to the point now where, over the last few months, gradually, where I've noticed that. I could
Mhm.
just feel the difference energetically. So I typically will buy what I'm going to juice like say today, and I will consume that tomorrow and the next day. I don't
That's
buy for a whole long
yeah,
period of time.
yeah.
And I think that's something that was innate. And again, I go back to, because I have such a curious mind. I'm a Sagittarius too, so I'm the ultimate cheerleader with you. But I just wonder. It's moving so fast. It really is moving so fast, especially having the backdrop of doing several years of these shows, day after day after day, and seeing the journey, seeing the evolution, seeing the transformation that's taken place, especially with people that will come back again and again. And I hope you'll come back. But I
I
guess
would
what I'm,
love
s-
to.
I
They're
guess what I'm,
journey ready. We're journey ready.
yeah,
Many
yeah.
of us are. I really truly believe that there's an emerging critical mass. See what I mean? Even if I just look at
That's what I mean. That's what I
yeah,
mean. That's what because I know you have a legal mind, but you also have a scientist template or
I
researcher
really do.
template, right? And I just wonder, I
Mhm.
wonder how much, because you know how it is. Things happen in the energetic field first, and then they physicalize. And for years people will talk about oh, we're going to have instant manifestation. And so many times it's so funny. I'm very guilty of it. We'll say, well, this is what it's going to look like. Well, we're saying the right thing, and it's accurate, but it's not what we think from our human comprehension. And I'm just wondering if this instant manifestation
Mhm.
has really started to take hold. And I'm talking about things like karmic, I'm talking about the impact of our energetic transformation physicalizing in us so rapidly that our human mind doesn't even have time to
Can catch
comprehend it.
up. Can catch up. Yes.
Although the information and the coding or the tech is turned on within us. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Lots of things are happening. And so what it is that now that Pluto is in Aquarius, okay, what that means is that there's a major transformation of bringing the power back to the people. That's number one thing that I truly believe. And also, um, all of humanity is transforming. The timelines are warping. That's why a 24-hour day is never the same as it used to be. And I know it from workload, like what I'm able to do today versus in my legal business back then. Oh my gosh, you have no idea what me and
I
my
know
staff could do.
we were badasses back then, weren't
It
we?
was like, oh
Yeah.
my God, like how could we do that much work? And today I'm like, what's wrong with me? Am I slowing down here? Like,
Thank
because I
God. See, this is the
can.
best. This is the best part of these shows is the human part of it. the human soul part of it.
Yeah.
You are a perfect example because you've got all this information, all this experience, and I have to ask you as we get into the last part of this. And thank you so much for going over time with me. But um, what? Well, first of all, let's establish this because you're very, very real. Uh, you obviously are aware of however we want to put this, the photonic blast, the solar flares, the Schumann, whatever, the blasts that we've been getting. I mean, this month has been absolute incredible. And sometimes people that are new to this, okay, will come in and they'll say, oh my God, she can do this and she gets that. I'm not like that. I can't do that. I must be stupid. But let's establish you're human, you're still in the human condition. Do you feel these energies? Do you ever get upset? What do you do to get
Oh
back
my
to
dear
the,
Lord.
you know what I
Oh,
mean?
surely.
How does,
Okay, so
you know what I mean?
yeah.
Because, you get what I'm saying. Go ahead. Thank you.
So so because people always look for the solution on the outside. So that means that, then that I'm not responsible. If the solution is outside, then I'm not responsible. You know, well, in Ayurveda says, yes, you are. Even when disease comes upon you, anything that happens, and the karma is cause and effect, and simply that's all it is. It's just cause and effect. And look at everybody goes, oh my God, bad karma. But eventually, if I did not eat well, if I did lots of crappy fatty for my last 20 years, then I should not be surprised that certain consequences come on up on me. And that's just how it works. So in other words, you've got to own it. You got to own it. You got to work it. It's not enough to have knowledge. Knowledge means nothing. I have so much knowledge. If you looked around me, it's like I'm covered in books. But what does that mean? So what I feel is that where it's all at is integration. You got to integrate. Of course, sometimes I get pissed. Holy dooly, I'm a Martian Venusian woman. I'm both. I'm water fire. I'm water fire total representation. And everybody that knows me personally can verify that. That's a true story. Okay. And so of course I get pissy because I'm like, everybody has the same amount of information out there. Go and look for it. But the thing is that it all comes back down to the fire water line, Todd. If people worked on their water line, they're emotional, and then they work on their, some people have a problem doing things. They don't dare. Their solar plexus is damaged, they don't dare to put torque toward a project, a thing of anything in their lives. Some people are not willing to face their emotional world. They just discard it. This is where body consciousness is such a huge thing, because the body will tell you there is a problem. It gives you a signal. And that's where I took my signals and I say, why in the name of the God do I want to die when I have a piece of walnut, which is a beautiful organic piece of walnut that's supposed to help my brains? Why am I just dying on it? Well, because there's miscommunication inside. So why? Because I was chronically dehydrated. Do you know what I'm saying? Through my medical journey, nobody talked to me about water. Not one person
Isn't
talked
that
to me
amazing? Isn't that
about
amazing?
water. And so I then took it and I said, I will never shut up ever about water. That's it.
That's the Sagittarius passion there.
Thank you
Uh,
for seeing me.
here's another question I have that just popped in. For the last year and a half, I would say year and a half, doing these shows. It started in 2023. That's when it started. It started like the latter part of 2023. Some of the conversations that we would have on the show would revolve around the voice or the consciousness of the physical body itself, of the container in its solidity and its physicality. And as time's gone on, it's become more and more of a conversation piece. And I'm just wondering, getting into the spirit scientific part of it, right? The spirit science. Uh, is this embodiment? Is our soul permeating the universal, uh, and becoming a voice
Yes,
that's not just out there as it
yes,
used to be?
yes,
You know what I mean? That's
yes,
actually taken on the physicality and speaking to us just as a beginning.
yeah.
But
Because your soul is
obviously,
a little, yes,
yeah.
pardon me.
No. I was just gonna say, obviously, if the soul is literally talking from each cell within me,
Mhm.
then the potential from there would change everything. I mean, I'm saying beyond the AI, the tech, the technology, beyond anything that's even remotely within our comprehension. Almost like we literally would become super beings.
Yes,
You know what I
light,
mean?
super light beings, and we are
Yeah.
going to be all switching to crystalline, and it is happening already. It's just that there's early adapters, and that's who we are, and then the rest will follow by our example. So that's one. And then two that I want to tell you about the spirituality thing. And I see that especially in the town where I live in Vancouver, like, there's a lot of foo-foo and a lot of woo-woo, okay? There's like, we are foo-foo town here, okay?
I've
And
been
sorry,
there.
Vancouverites, please don't kill me after this interview. But what happens is that spirituality to me is not about going up somewhere, like upward, like there's this thing and we're gonna go there. It's more like understanding that you're a spirit being and how to live in the container to experience. And that's what happens So you got to honor the body. You got to honor it. You got to honor it as much as your mind, and you got to honor it as much as your soul. You know what I'm saying? Those three travel in tandem. And in order for actually holistic health, it's more important that the three travel in tandem, which explains your McDonald's story as well. So maybe your physical body's frequency was more matching at the time to your mind space's frequency vibration at the time. So there was not that much differentiation between the body and the mind. So you were more at ease. You were more at, even if it sounds quite funny that,
Oh,
yay, I can
that
be on,
makes total
you know
sense. And
what
I
I
think,
mean?
yeah,
But let's say if you've got this um, um, high, higher perspective mind space, and you then it's a very vibrant informational space with thoughts, with knowledge, with emotions. You're understanding the collective. You're out there, but yet you just eat like crappy patty. What's going to happen is that there's such a big frequency differentiation between your body and the mind, and because they're connected, there's like a friction, there's a problem, and then sooner or later the body is going to show the signal, and disease or some sort of a disharmonious state will come about. So that's what people have to start understanding, that after all these decades of research, all of the gurus, if you will, okay, all of the people that are out there, are we still questioning about a soul's existence? Well, we all know deep inside, but yet when I talk about energy, people go, oh, okay. So what's the herb I need to take? Well, you could take all the herb all you want if the other components are
it's a
not,
placebo effect, you
you
know?
know, see what I mean? And
Yeah,
so,
yeah. No, I totally, I'm totally aligned with what you're saying, and it's so funny. I woke up this morning. I told you I had my lucid dreams, and I journal them, and then I wrote this post, and then I thought, okay, I've got to, like enter that space with Orshi, you know, because it is a sacred space, and something popped into my head, and I thought, what the hell is this? And my soul's like, you need to post this. Just put up this little meme, right?
uh-huh,
And it says, and it must have come from you. It says, we are learning to guide ourselves now, and our reflection is the new way of guiding others. And so I
yeah.
think this speaks to what you're talking about, because I have seen the change. Because many of the people that come on this show have been practitioners. And I watched this evolution happen in 2023 and then into 2024, where they're dropping modalities, they're dropping their practice. They're just like, oh my God, I'm blowing this up. And it's almost like, I'm not disparaging anyone, I'm not throwing shade on anyone. I'm just saying, I'm looking at some characteristics of this evolution that we all share that seem to become more and more obvious and apparent. And that is that uh, whatever we're doing, whether you call it practitioner, whether you call it healing, whether you call it artistry, whether you call it talk show, whatever it is, it's actually the illumination of the soul's energetic field doing what is purposeful and passionate
Yeah,
for them.
purposeful and
And
passion.
that self-sourcing
Mhm.
is really inevitable, and let's just call it, in using human terms, 5D and above. Like there is no codependency or give and take or credit debit or whatever the case is, and that it's actually, I can tell you're a good example again. You love what you're doing. What did you
Yes,
call yourself? A water snob? I mean, you
water stuff.
love what you're
I
doing, and
do. I do.
that's the. It's like the more you love what you're doing, the more your heart resonance field, the
That's
more your
right.
illumination, and
That's that's right.
that's something that
Mhm.
I think, as you were talking about, the quantum thing, that the
That's what I
physics of
wish
the
to
quantum,
everybody.
yeah, yeah, like
That's what I wish
that's
to
so
everybody.
powerful and so beyond our comprehension. I just got to say, it's been an hour and a half, and I don't want to keep you any longer, but I would like for you, if you don't mind, just hang on for a second, and we'll sign off. And
Absolutely.
let's see if we can schedule something for next month as well.
Absolutely. I
Okay.
love it. And thank you so much for
Yeah.
having me in this
Yeah.
space. And that's what I wish for everybody, by the way, as a closing line, that you find your own authentic, and I'm talking authentic alignment. Not just use the words, but do it. Align and allow it. Allowing is feminine energy. Allow it. Don't freak out on the asteroid and want to do, but allow and magnetize to who you really are. And for that, you got to really get to know you. You got to know you, my friends, better.
Haha, yes. Well, thank you so much. We're going to be doing a lot of shows. I said we're going to only do 35 or 45 a month, but I don't know. I shouldn't never cast an absolute down on the universe, because you know how that works. It'll come right back and hit you in the face like a boomerang. But we are getting started again, very serious about it. We got the Starlink, so I can travel anywhere to do this. And I would appreciate, I don't normally do this, but you guys, have supported us for many, many years, and we've totally appreciate it. And we've got to keep this, get this machine running again. So visit us at PayPal or Venmo. We really would appreciate it. And stay tuned. We'll be back in 2.5 hours to study the ancient Toltec tradition. And I will see Orsi next month, and we're going to schedule something right now. And we'll see you guys in 2.5 hours. Thank you very much.